Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Stewart, and along with my partner in crime, Lance Dawson, we co-host Backstage Lowdown. And today we have Mr. Alan Cross in studio. There's a saying that goes something like, if you want to know where you're going, you have to understand where you've been. And Alan has given us decades of the ongoing history of new music to help us understand where we are now and where we're going. Now he has co-produced the documentary film CFNY, The Spirit of Radio, and we're going to get to sit down and have a chat with him about it. This episode is sponsored by Look Digital Marketing. From stunning websites to full-service digital marketing, they help your business shine online. See the difference with Look Digital Marketing. Visit lookmarketing.ca today. Look no further. Here we go. Hey, Alan.
Hey, Alan, how you
yeah.
doing?
Good.
Awesome.
It's good to see you. Welcome to Backstage Lowdown.
You're very glad to be here.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited to have you. And this is tough. It's when we talk to musicians, we never have to worry. But when we talk to these professional DJs, they come on with their mellifluous voices and stuff. I want to record at 6 a.m. It's the only way I can keep up with these guys. Listen to Alan's voice.
That's what decades of recording will do to you.
Yeah, that's what it does. Talking. Basically, I'm wearing everything out. So,
well, look, congratulations on the doc, along with all sorts of other accomplishments, Alan. But both Andrew and I watched the doc. I watched it with my teenage. Well, no, sorry, he's not a teenager anymore. My 21, 22-year-old son. And congratulations. It's
thank
fantastic.
you very much. This was a 10-year project. The first 7 years were spent complaining that there wasn't such a film, and the last 3 years were actually making a film.
Why don't we start out by setting some groundwork, like from the point that you walked through the door? Why don't you tell us about what your original thoughts when you first walked through the door of CFNY, about the characters that were on the other side, and maybe from when it went from just being another radio station, I'm going to say, to a cultural revolution.
Well, it was very much in its peak cultural revolution phase when I arrived on October 3rd, 1986 at exactly 12 noon. I walked into the reception area after driving in from Winnipeg, and they had a reporter down at the foot of York Street covering the sod turning ceremony of this new thing called the Sky Dome. So I and the Sky Dome are exactly the same age as far as Toronto goes. When I walked in, I really didn't know what to expect. I'd heard of this weirdo radio station, and I'd seen the Casby Awards on TV, and I was familiar with, some of the music. And I was very shocked when I was hired to be the new overnight person. But I was looking to advance my career somehow, and I was looking to get out of Winnipeg because you can be a big fish in a small pond there, and that didn't really appeal to me. I wanted to try something bigger, different. So when the opportunity came to move to Toronto, or more correctly Brampton, I jumped at it. And from the moment I got to the station, you could tell that it was a very different place. It was a beehive of activity, and the vibe was different. It was much more excitable. It was much more hands-on. It was much more us against the world than at any other radio station I had ever worked at. And I quickly learned that the entire staff believed that they were on a mission from God, that we had all this music that we had to disseminate to as many people as possible because it's better, because it's good. Not because we're getting paid to do it. God knows we were very, very overworked and underpaid, but because this mattered musically. And that attitude from the radio station spread to the audience, and the audience began to believe what we were feeding them. And it turned to this cultural phenomenon that I don't think will ever be repeated as far as radio goes.
That was that was one of my questions too, because it was kind of like this spot in time where there was such good music. There wasn't a tsunami of just so much music, a lot of it crappy, that you had to sift through. And I agree with you. I don't know. It's too bad that that couldn't happen again. That was one of my questions, Alan. Like, do you think there's in some form, maybe not a grassroots movement of CFNY, us against the world, but is there anything that you could even see in the future that are going to link people, young people, to really good quality music?
Here's the problem. Back in those days, music was in very scarce supply. You had five main cultural gatekeepers. You had radio, record labels, record stores, music magazines, and video channels. They controlled what we heard. If you go back to a year like, I don't know, 1985, maybe 2,000 albums were released that year. That's it.
Yeah.
So again, you have this scarcity, and everything has been filtered multiple times before it even begins to reach the general population. Today, about 100,000 songs are uploaded to the streaming music services every day. We have fingertip control over what we put into our ears. And we don't need to rely on anybody to tell us what to listen to, or, God forbid, make us wait to listen to something or to see
Right.
something on TV. So, because everything has gone down to the individual and it's that granular, and everybody loves their unique individual niche as far as the music world is concerned, there is much less of a community, of a consensus about what is considered good music and what everybody needs to be listening to and what I need to be listening to, so I'm part of the larger group. Even mainstream music today is a niche because, yeah, Taylor Swift is a big artist, and Beyonce is a big artist, and The Weeknd is a big artist, but they don't have the ubiquity that an artist of similar size or analogous size in the 1980s and 90s would have, because there was so much less to listen to. And I'll tell you this too, because there was so much less music, and because it was doled out by radio stations and video channels and music and music magazines and so on, we were even aware of what everybody else was listening to, even if we hated this music. It was in the air, and we were all part of it, whether we wanted to participate actively or not. Today, we can opt out. We don't have to listen to anything we find distasteful or annoying or just not appealing.
Right.
That was not the case back in those days.
Hmm. One of the things that I've found to add to your point is there's also the phenomenon of um, most people listening to their music on headphones. And so it's so much more isolating
Mhm.
that I don't actually walk next to Alan Cross and he's listening to something. I'm like, hey man, what's that? Or who are you listening to? And then we have a discussion about the album or the band or what have you.
Mhm.
It just seems like those of us that are still digesting music, you're absolutely right. And it is so much of it, but it's also such an isolating experience unless you have, friends and forums that you discuss those things in,
There's
right?
even a term for it. It's called ego casting, which means you only listen to whatever appeals to you in your little bubble. And algorithms don't help, because what an algorithm does is say, oh, you like this? Well, here's something else kind of like this.
Right.
So you end up hearing more of the same or something very similar. The chances of you breaking out of that bubble, being exposed to something that at first may sound incredibly radical and weird and awful to you, but if with repeated unintentional exposure, you come to appreciate it and even like it, that doesn't happen as much anymore, because again, we have complete control of whatever we listen to, and on our phones and wherever else we're listening to music, we have the skip button. If something comes up that we don't like or find unfamiliar or it doesn't grab our attention immediately, boom, you hit that skip button within 5 or 10 seconds. You never give a song an opportunity to be heard.
Right.
Give you a great example. If you are, okay, let's go back to U2 and the Joshua Tree album in 1987. First song, side one, is Where the Streets Have No Name. It starts with this long synthesizer drone that builds and builds and builds and changes chords a couple of times, and then the edge comes in with his arpeggio guitar, and then the drums and the bass come in, and it builds and builds and builds and builds. And Bono doesn't start singing until almost 2 minutes into the song. Today, a song like that would have absolutely no chance because what's this drony garbage at the beginning? Skip. And the nature of streaming is changing the very way we compose music. First of all, you have to listen to a song for 30 seconds before you get paid for a stream, or the artist gets paid for a stream. So what you are doing, what artists are doing and producers are doing, is that they're making sure that they throw everything into that first 30 seconds of a song to grab your attention and hold it until the song goes to at least 31 seconds. So you have shorter intros, the choruses are up front, there's all these different hooks in the first 30 seconds, whatever it takes to get to second number 31. So the system, the technology is shaping the way the songs are created and the way the songs are presented, because people have no attention span anymore.
Wow.
That's a shame. Like
Yeah.
you give that example of U2, and just the way that you explain that, I had shivers going up my spine. Like I have seen those guys play, I don't know, maybe 8 times or so. And just the opportunity to see a concert open with that song, like it's next level. And kids aren't going to understand that today. Or
No.
maybe they understand what's presented to them, but they're missing out on all of this fantastic music.
Yeah, the patience that's required to appreciate something.
Yeah.
It's become a lot of fast food, a lot of empty calories. And, you know,
I was
I'm not gonna
immediately
be,
thinking of the Rolling Stones too with doesn't You Can't Always Get What You Want? Isn't there
also
like a huge
with the
long
choir.
intro with a choir, right?
Yeah.
And if you tell somebody this is a great rock and roll song, you're gonna love it, they have to sit through a couple of minutes like, what the hell what's happening here? Right? But it's all part of it.
Yes.
Yeah, just that was a great example that you gave. So
Yeah.
that's all that came to my mind.
I'll give you another one. Tool. I mean, Tool songs take a while to develop.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you are into Tool, you get it. If you're not, and you're just being exposed to Tool by some algorithmic fluke, you're going, okay, well, get to it. You know, don't bore us, get to the chorus, that kind of thing. So it's very interesting how technology does shape the nature of music.
How excited were you guys knowing that this was an actual mission? You said like this band of brothers had this mission to do it. It seems like it would be pretty exciting to be on the cutting edge of um, exposing people to
Oh yeah.
some amazing bands. Because again, who does that today?
Well, it happened on two levels. And again, it's a different time. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have social media. So we cultivated relationships with overseas record labels. So we would order, you know, when we read about something or somebody in the UK tipped us off to this hot new band, we knew to go to Records on Wheels or the Record Peddler or whoever who specialized in ordering in imports, say, get us copies for these records and of these records. And they would have 1, 2 copies, 3 copies. One would be for us, or 2 would be for us, and the other 2 would go on the shelves because they had no idea if these records would sell. Well, we would start playing them, and those 2 or 3 copies that they had would disappear immediately. So it was, you know, people would. There was one occasion, I can't remember who it was. It might have been with the Depeche Mode record, but one of our UK correspondents was heading to Toronto anyway, and he bought a copy of the album and flew it to us, and we had it something like, you know, weeks before its North American release. You know, that's the kind of things that we had to do back then, because today music flows around the world at the speed of light. Back then, no. It was all about getting those hard to find and very expensive imports.
Yeah.
So with being able to get music a little bit earlier than all the other stations out there that would even play it in the first place, How big was CFNY in really breaking that artist in North America?
Oh, huge. Absolutely. You talk to Simple Minds, you talk to U2, you talk to Depeche Mode, you talk to OMD, you talk to the Buzzcocks, you talk to, New Order. They
The list
all,
goes on.
the list goes on. They all agree that, okay, there was this one weird radio station in Canada that was playing our music, and the DJs really seemed to care about the music. And, when we would finally fly over and play gigs, oh my God, all these people turned out. We would go to the United States and we'd play clubs in front of 50, 60 people. We come to Canada, to Toronto and the surrounding area, and there'd be 1,500 people. So it was,
Amazing.
yeah. And record executives were aware of this. Uh, Labels, foreign labels were aware of this. Foreign artists were aware of this, and it's created this sort of love affair with Canada, specifically Toronto, where artists could launch an American career from Toronto.
Wow. Alan, just for those that are, because obviously we're going to recommend that everybody go and watch this documentary so they even know what we're talking about if they haven't listened to or don't know about CFNY. But can you just remind everybody where you guys started from? Like, hey, we had this really weak signal. We're in this house. 20 people within the next block can hear us, and where you ended up in terms of your, I was going to say your power, but your footprint. In terms of the
Right.
footprint
Well,
that's either
what happened? Okay, so FM radio was still very much in its infancy in the 1970s. It was a sort of an afterthought for a lot of radio stations. Owners would get licenses and just sort of sit on them, not really sure what they were going to do with them. FM radio was invented in the 1930s and started to gain some traction in the early 1960s, but it really wasn't until we get to the very late 60s and early 70s where it starts to have an impact. What made FM radio different from AM was that they played longer songs. They played album tracks. The DJs spoke slower and spoke in more conversational terms than the fast talking DJs on AM. And so there was this radio station called Chick FM, which was run by Chick AM in Brampton in this little yellow house. And in the early days, all Chick FM was a third turntable in the control room, and they would just put on an album and let it go. And you couldn't hear it for maybe 10 square miles. That was it, because they were broadcasting off an illegal transmitter in north of the city. But eventually, what happened was some investment was made in the radio station. This terrible little yellow house, dirty, rat infested, mouse infested. The control room was upstairs in the bedroom, and then there was the music library was in the bedroom, and the control room was downstairs. It was crowded, cramped, and awful. But and so we really had nothing to lose. It's this garbage radio station. Well, I don't. That's a harsh way, but it's garbage facilities,
Right.
with a terrible signal, and whatever was basically the thought. But again, we're coming into a revolution musically. So there's the huge punk rock revolution, followed by new wave, followed by post punk. So there was this tremendous amount of new, exciting music that no one was touching. Now, at the time, around the same time Chick FM became CFNY, um, we had Q107 sign on the air in Toronto. And Q107 had a great signal, a fantastic set of facilities in downtown Toronto. And they were playing they were playing rock.
Right.
And they were going up against Chum FM, which was also at the time rock. So there was no way that our little signal could compete with Chum FM and Q107. So David Marston, the program director, decided after about a year that, you know what, we can't do it. So why don't we just play all this left of center stuff that is coming out, and we'll see what happens. I mean, again, what did we have to lose?
Sure.
But everything lined up. People had a hunger for this kind of music, whether they knew it or not. And once they discovered the radio station, they would do whatever they could to make sure that they could tune it in. So that meant, stringing wires outside your bedroom window. That meant, putting an extension on your car antenna, and, whatever else, whatever it took to bring in the radio station. And that's the way it was for several years until 1983, when David Marsden successfully argued before the CRTC to have the station's transmitter moved from the Caledon Hills to the CN Tower. And that gave us 100,000 watts over a vast footprint that goes east almost, oh gosh, almost all the way to Kingston, north to Barrie, west to Kitchener, and then down around the lake through Niagara and into Western New York. And that's when the station really, really started to exert its influence. So that's
Right.
1983. And what followed were some pretty awesome years where everybody could hear us and everybody got into us.
Yeah. I grew up in Niagara. So that's when CFNY kind of came on my, you know,
Your
radar, I
radar.
guess, for my radar, for lack of a better. Thank you. Thank you,
You're
Andrew, for my thesaurus.
Yes. So, Alan, when you guys start digging into the archives and going through all of the interviews and the memories, was there anything that really surprised you that you came across? And at what point did it go from you guys just researching to bringing on Matt Schichter to direct?
Well, what happened was I was in Boston with Matt and his fiance at the time, and I mentioned that God, I wish we could get this stupid documentary made, and he had a deal with Highball TV and said, well, why don't I pitch it to them? So he did. They had a mandate to do um, one documentary, and they went for it. So fantastic. So we started getting all the ball. Oh God, there was who do we interview? Where are they? How do we get how many people, how many staff members are still alive? Where are we going to shoot? How are we going to shoot? All this stuff had to be done. And then we started shooting production in November of 2022. And things continued over the next year and a bit. And then there was a long period of time where we didn't know how we were going to actually place this, who was going to buy it, who was going to
Yeah.
broadcast it for us. And eventually it came out that TVO was interested, but they would only do a 1 hour cut. So as a result, a lot of stuff, what's been seen so far was about 120,000 times. What's been seen so far on TVO and on their TVO channel is missing a lot of stuff that was in the original cut. Now we are in the process of, I don't want to say restoring, but let's just say recreating the original cut um, for theatrical showings, and we have some plans to have some screenings around the GTA and Montreal with this extra stuff. And details of those those showings will come out very shortly.
Will you
Oh,
be
that's
joining
fantastic.
Yeah.
that production? Because
Oh, yeah.
we went down and saw the Much Music crowd did one
Yes,
not too
I was
long
there.
ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. And it was really interesting just to have those people accompany, the show.
Yeah, we're going to do that. There's a group of us that'll be involved, and we'll see how much we how much we can milk this.
No, you know what? Do you miss the days, Alan, that because I mean I tend to romanticize the time before the internet and this connectivity that we all have. Do you miss when radio, like when DJs had some input into what was
Oh
being
yeah,
played?
I mean it was so much fun, and we were given so much responsibility to choose our music and to sequence our music. It wasn't
Right.
enough just to play song after song after song. You had to tell a story with sonics, with audio over the course of a set of music. And that was a lot of fun and required a lot of understanding of how music works and how to DJ to set a mood. And Marsden was hard on us. He would make sure that we paid attention to the segues and the mixes. When I first walked into the control room, there were about 20,000 songs to choose from. And you had to know every single one of them. Daunting, very daunting.
Yeah.
And I can tell you too that if you didn't do a good job in the eyes of a listener, they were very quick to tell you. They would be on the phone in a heartbeat. If you misspoke about an artist or you made a mistake about something, boom, they were right there to correct you.
They'd phone the radio station.
Oh, yes. Oh, all the time. And, you at first, that was a bit disconcerting. But then after a while, you realize, these people really care. And if they care that much, well, then I got to work harder to make sure that I live up to their expectations.
That's one response. That's great. And another response, like, you have a lot of time on your hands.
Oh, yeah, believe me.
Call it a radio station, just because I thought it was called Teen Spirit and it's not. It's Bob O'Reilly. I get it. Calm down.
Yeah. Oh, boy. And then, they would argue, the finer points of you're playing Spadina Bus by the Shuffle Demons. They have other songs. You should go and look at side 2, track 4, because it's a song of, like, okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Believe me.
But that's cool. Then you discover another song, I guess.
Again, you had to have respect for the audience because they knew the music as well as, in some cases, as far as I'm concerned, better than some of the DJs. They were that passionate about it. And I'll tell you that as, I worked overnights for about a year and a half, and I can tell you that the overnight listener was extraordinarily passionate about what came out of the speakers. Extraordinarily. And there were many times where I was, and I'll admit it, schooled by somebody on the phone.
I feel like we're interviewing Dr. Johnny Fever in person. I really do. Alan, just while I'm talking about that, I was just saying to Andrew, I had a bad night's sleep last night, so I did a deep dive on WKRP. I don't know why. Don't ask. I love that show. And apparently, because they did such a good job of showing the transition of when radio stations could switch formats and the DJs ran the show and the program directors worked with the DJs and stuff. And then they showed, the corporate takeover and the pablum that ensued. Apparently, 1 or 2 of those episodes are now required watching for
1 or 2.
If you're taking like radio business or whatever the course would be, if they've actually put it into a scholastic type
I'm not surprised,
thing, which is cool.
Yeah, I'm not surprised because it was highly fictionalized, but there were, the Hugh Wilson who created it, worked at a radio station.
Yeah.
He knew how it worked because he had, when he was working in Atlanta, he had a sales guy that was Herb Tarlick. And I'll tell you that every real life radio station has a Herb Tarlick. Everybody.
Herb Tarlick.
And
Backstage Lowdown has its Les Nessman. The guy right below me. That's the guy.
Yes, we had Les Nessman.
Here I am.
And most I think all the radio stations I worked at had a Lonnie Anderson, had a Jennifer out front.
Yeah.
Swear to God.
Why don't we have that? Why do I have to look at you all the time?
we need to do some work here.
I'm going to be honest. I was more of a Bailey Quarters guy, but whatever.
Oh, yeah. It's like Betty or Veronica. Which one were you?
Yeah. Exactly. Or Ginger or Marianne.
Yeah.
But now I'm really dating myself. I was born in the 1900s. I have to come back.
Lonnie's gone, but Bailey's still with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Alan, why? I mean, you've been bringing the history of music to us now for over 3 decades.
Mm-hmm.
Why now do you now come forward with the documentary? Why is now the time?
The opportunity presented itself.
Okay.
End of story. We finally got a chance after 7 years of complaining. And, I don't know if the timing's right. I mean, right now, this is early days. This has only been out since January the 6th. It's early days. But, TVO, to be honest, thought we were going to get 40,000 views. And they would be happy with 40,000 views. Well, we're at 120,000 in just over 2 weeks. So, or over 3 weeks. So that's pretty good. And that has spurred conversation about, okay, now what? The answer is, I don't know. Could there be more? I don't know. But it certainly has surprised a lot of people and has certainly got us intrigued as to, whether or not this can turn into something more going down the line.
I already like the idea that I now know that there's at least another hour of footage that's
Oh
out there
yeah.
for this film that we're going to see at some point.
It's not
And
here. I have a solid state drive with 22 terabytes of raw footage on it.
Wow.
the
So that'll
fact that,
probably be on the road show, I'm assuming, the uncut version.
yeah,
The Roadshow's in there, the Casbys are in there, more Pete and Geets, more Live Earl and Bev. There's a lot more on there, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
and the fact that there could be something else that comes out of this, that's very exciting.
Yeah,
That's
I've got my
crazy.
fingers crossed. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, making documentaries, making any kind of of filmed entertainment is very difficult because in Canada, it's one thing to make a documentary for the country, but it costs as much to make a documentary for the 40 million people in Canada as it does to make a documentary for the 390 million people in North America. But the
Yeah.
problem is Americans don't care, so we have to turn this into something that is more international to gain an audience. Right now, the only place that you can see it is in Canada. The TVO channel is geo-blocked. But we are in talks with PBS, and PBS is quite excited about running the film at least in their border markets, starting with Buffalo and then moving across the country. And that'll probably be in March, I think. So we'll see where things go from there.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. Listen, Alan, we have almost had you now for our full half hour. And I don't know if you've had an opportunity to see one of our shows or
Oh,
not.
wait a sec. I'm sorry. Can I interject? I know.
Yeah.
I know. Because
Okay,
this
okay.
is an exciting part. I just had one more question. I wasn't watching the clock, and I thought
Yeah.
we had Alan for
No,
longer.
what do you got? Go.
Alan, you brought up a really interesting point just at the top of where we used to get our, like, the record labels told us about music and the radio stations, radio magazines, whatever. I love that because I just thought, oh, you know what? I remember discovering the Dawes, which is a really cool band, because I was reading a magazine article and Jackson Browne said, hey, you guys should listen to the Dawes. They have a very 70s song or sound and whatever. Where are you getting, like, where do you discover music now? What's your source that turns you on to new stuff now?
Well,
Because Andrew and I both have like
Glad
20-year-old
you asked
sons.
that question.
yeah, well,
good.
I'm lucky enough that everybody sends me stuff. I'll get
Oh, okay.
500 to 600 music submissions a week. So,
Wow.
and then there's all the industry newsletters, there's all the stuff that's out there. And I also spend a lot of time listening to radio stations in the UK and Australia because
right,
they
okay.
look at things differently. They have their own local scenes, and they often, get on. Well, obviously, they get on local stuff faster than we would.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
it's I listen to BBC Radio 6 every morning for about 2.5 hours, and they have a lot of stuff. I follow their playlist, see what they're adding. There's a couple of other radio stations in the UK that I follow that are different, and it's like, okay, well, this is the stuff that's bubbling up. And if you pay attention to how that works, well, then you can begin to sort of almost kind of predict which acts will cross the Atlantic or cross the Pacific here. I'll give you an example of Wet Leg. Wet Leg I first heard on British radio, and I thought, this is good. This is too good to stay just in the UK. This band is going to be they're going to go viral on streaming music services. Streaming music services, of course, have made everything completely flat. I mean, music has gone global as a result. So I think it's going to show up there first on the new Discovery stuff, and then eventually a record label here will pick it up for distribution, and it'll become a hit. They'll become a hit in North America, which is exactly what happened. So I'm currently, I'm always looking to see and always, listening professionally. And what I mean by that is it's not necessarily for pleasure. It's like, okay, let's analyze this. Let's look. Does this have legs? Does this have something that could possibly capture the public's attention or the zeitgeist of the time? So it's a nonstop thing. And I still miss stuff. I miss a lot of stuff.
Well, at
But
100,000 uploads a day, you're going to
it's
miss
hard.
some stuff.
Yeah, it's really hard. But yeah, it's my job.
Yeah, there you go. All right, I apologize. We have a great ending for the show, and I stomped on Andrew's.
Oh,
I know. I'm sorry, man. Go
Listen,
ahead.
Alan, we always like to finish one of our episodes just with a little fun rapid fire round, 10 questions, either or answers. There's no wrong answer, but Lance and I do judge. So why,
Yes,
Okay,
we
why,
go
judge
ahead.
harshly.
yeah, exactly. Why don't we start off? We've got late night new wave or early morning alternative.
Okay,
Which one would you
Which
prefer?
one?
This is
late
like a
night.
shoes or boots kind of thing.
No, let's do the late night alternative.
UK imports or Toronto Underground?
UK imports.
The Cure or the Smiths?
Oh, The Cure. I never understood the Smiths. I would fight with Scott Turner all the time. He loved the Smiths. He'd say, "Oh, Morrissey's a poet." And I go, "No, Paul Simon's a poet. Morrissey's a whiner."
All right. Punk Edge or Art School Cool?
Probably Punk Edge. I still have an edge to me, so, or at least I like to think so.
Yeah. 12-inch singles or full album?
Unfair, both. Each have
We
their
always
place.
we always get one both. So we'll
Yeah.
give you that. Deep cuts or instant classics?
It takes more effort, and the payoff is greater as a result for deep cuts.
Studio spontaneity or on-air anarchy?
You can't have on-air anarchy because you need, for good radio, you need a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah. Risky first plays or safe fan favorites?
Oh, always risky first place. Always. Not even a contest.
Number 9, fanzine or liner notes?
For me, it would be liner notes simply because I'm getting hard, factual information about the artist.
What the hell is fanzine? You put that on a cut or something? What is that?
We'll talk about that after, Lance.
All right.
Okay, last but not least, first listen alone or shared discovery?
With me, I tend to be rather introverted and very opinionated about my music, so it's probably best for me to listen to something alone first. Although I will say that there have been times when I've been in a room and somebody has put on a record and everybody stops and looks at the speakers and goes, "Oh my God, what's that?" And that moment, it happens so rarely these days because being a music fan is kind of like being a heroin addict. You have that first taste when you're 14 or 15, and every song is the greatest song ever. And that continues for a number of years. But then you grow older and get a job and get married and have kids and have a boss you hate and a mortgage and all that sort of stuff. And you don't have time or money to be as big a music fan as you were in your teens. And that means you've got a lot of baggage, you've got a lot of biases, you've got a lot of prejudices about what good music is.
Sure.
So when you're like, say, 40, 45, and suddenly a song comes on and you go, "Oh my God, what's this?" You're 17 one more time. And that moment is just glorious.
And there's so few things that do that to us anymore.
There is.
That's right. That's very cool.
And it's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's just that we become experienced music fans. We recognize trends. We recognize
Right.
fads. We recognize cycles in music. We go, "Oh, hey, Green Day, cool." Kind of like the Ramones, or we listen to, I'm trying to think of something, My Chemical Romance, Turnstile. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's the longer you are, the more experience you have, the more judgment you can pass.
That's interesting, Alan, because I just had this conversation with a friend of mine about our political views and our age. Like you start off when you're young, if you have any political views at all, it's probably more like NDP, like let's take care of everybody. And then
Yeah.
as you get older and you maybe have some friends that are gay, or you want your education, you're going in and say, "Hey, I'm a very liberal guy. Like this is the way I go." And then you get into your 50s and you're looking at RSPs and you're like, "Holy cow, we got to get progressive conservative here and be fiscally responsible. What the hell is going on?" And at the same time you're changing, society's shifting the scale left and right, where
Yeah.
hey, I was just left of center. How did I end up on the right? What just happened?
Yeah,
And
and then what happens,
you
I'll tell
know,
you right now, once you get into your later 50s and early 60s, you swing over to the left again. I have.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
yeah,
went through that exact the same thing. But
yeah,
now it's like, you know what? Live and let live. You know
yeah.
what? And
Because you get tired of the fight, right? You
I,
get tired of
yeah,
like whatever.
I'm proudly woke. Call
Yeah.
me woke all you
Yep.
want.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
funny how those things I feel are connected, where your judgment on music and what really turns you on, like it has to change
Mm,
with your age and your
It
experience
does.
and whatever.
It
So
does. Otherwise, it's arrested development and you're a 17-year-old for the rest of your life. And there's nothing wrong with being we're speaking generally here. There are people,
Yeah.
and I know these people who have not changed with their enthusiasm about music. I haven't changed about my enthusiasm about music, but most of the world, once they reach a certain age, have their comfort food, and their comfort food is the music that they learned about between the ages of 13 and 23.
right.
And they will head back to that music every time they're stressed or they want to feel good or whatever, whatever, whatever. And that is the cycle of life. There is nothing wrong with that. In fact, there is a study that suggests that we get into this comfort food zone for a while until we're about 41 and a half years old. And at that point, you have some kind of crisis where you go, hey, wait a second, I'm still down with the kids. I still know what good music is. And for about 18 months, you immerse yourself back into trying to discover music and going to gigs and all that sort of stuff. And then you hit 43 and a bit, and it's like, whatever. And you just go back
Yeah.
to your old ways.
That's interesting, because there was just
Yeah.
another article that came out about our cognitive changes in life, where
Mm-hmm.
like when you're 9, you sort of don't feel like a little kid anymore. So you have this cognitive change. I want more responsibility. And then
Yes.
sort of the next thing is when you turn 30, you kind of accept that you are now an adult. Like
Yes.
there's some absolute resistance to, you're 25 or you have your first full-time job. And you're like, what happened to me? But when you're 30, you kind of get it. Like, okay, I understand this. And then I think there's one other one around 60, and I think that's what you're just talking about now, where you kind of like, you more easygoing and stuff. And then of course, if you're lucky enough to get to 80, it's more of an acceptance that the runway is short and will be ending shortly. But they've labeled these cognitive markers, and I would suggest that they probably line up with some of the comfort food and your connection with music and then society at large. you know
Yeah.
I do worry about people when I speak to people and I ask them, who do you listen to, because it's one of my go-to questions. And they say, I'm not really into music, or I don't listen to
Oh,
music.
yeah. But that
And then
happens.
and then
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I don't understand, like what fills your soul, like would you kick a couple puppies on the way to work, like what happened, you know so anyway, too much. Alan, I feel like I could talk to you for another hour. I've got so many questions.
Thank you so much for your time today,
Oh,
Alan.
you're welcome.
We really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
it was fun,
Yep.
Alan. Thank you for taking the
You're
time.
very welcome, and maybe we can do this again sometime.